And Dave, you saw the race of the weekend. What was it like, you and Andy Biancone trackside with journalism storming down the stretch?
So I don't know if you heard, but that was the biggest crowd that Monmouth Park has had since American Pharoah back in 2015, our Triple Crown winner. So loud. That finish was just unbelievable, the way people were cheering journalism home. And the fact that he looked like he was not going to win with about 50 yards to go, and then he pulled off the same exact feat that he did in the Preakness, which is catching Gosger right at the end.
Arm stretched out for Umberto Rispoli. Now, he didn't have the best gate dispatch. We heard from Umberto that he was a little bit agitated in the gate. He's usually a very sharp breaker, but at this point, he's only got one or two horses beat early in the race.
You know what? It does remind me of the Preakness, where he didn't look like he was really 100% on his A game at this point. But the difference was, in the Preakness, Rispoli, and he said after the race, I didn't feel like he had it, so I kept him inside. I needed to save every inch of ground. I wanted to make sure I gave him the best chance of winning. I didn't know if I was good enough to go wide. On this day, he wasn't playing that game. He keeps them on the outside. He's probably still feeling very confident right now at this point, even though he only has one horse beat.
And you've got Bob Baffert looking for his 10th Haskell. He's got the number 8 goal-oriented, gliding right there in 3rd. Gosker's the gray. He's in 5th right now, but he's got the jump on journalism.
So journalism's right behind him in those orange silks, getting ready to make his move. Goal-oriented starting to move as well in 2nd. And then Gosger is looking very strong at this point, just like he did in the Preakness. He had an advantage on journalism, but remember, in the Preakness, journalism got bounced around. In the Santa Anita Derby, journalism was boxed in, bumped, pinned in. Rispoli kept him out in the clear. He gave him a perfect chance. Just really a very similar trip to what he got in the Kentucky Derby. Not a great start, but had a nice trip thereafter. Rallies wide. And at this point, you think, oh, he's got it. No problem. He's going to pass him right now. And then all of a sudden, Gosger gets about a length and a half separation. Not that journalism ever went into neutral, but he still looks beat. And watch him make this scintillating move on the outside. Still needs to make up some ground. Goal-oriented still there. Gosger in the middle. Journalism barely getting up. Actually, when watching it live, I was standing right in the winner's circle where they passed. It felt like a nose, but it was probably more like a half length.
I mean, I heard a roar here from our FanDuel TV studios, and that's just with, you know, a collection of guys and gals watching the race on a TV. I can only imagine what this one felt like coming down the stretch live.
It was incredible. I actually took a video of it that I'll show you a little bit later on. Maybe I'll tweet it out. But the roar of the crowd was spectacular. I think a lot of relief for all the connections involved with journalism to see him win as the 2-5 favorite. Did he win by 10 lengths? No. But did he, to me, have a historical stretch run once again like he did in the Preakness? Yes.
I think similar to if you go back to, let's say, late 2016, where you had a great rivalry of the older horses, California Chrome and Arrogate. You could definitely argue that Arrogate at the moment was the better horse, and you could argue right now Sovereignty was the better horse. But California Chrome at that point was the most popular horse, and journalism is the most popular horse in racing currently.
I think he is. He's raced 3 times now since the Kentucky Derby. Sovereignty's still only raced once since the Kentucky Derby. That was the Belmont win. That's going to change this Saturday at Saratoga when he goes in the Jim Dandy. Then he'll be off to the Travers. To me, it sounds like they're probably going to want to keep journalism home, which would mean he'll be racing in Del Mar, which doesn't have any 3-year-old races. The logical spot, if they're not going to ship, would be the Pacific Classic. Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Oh my gosh, me too. I mean, he loves that main character energy, I keep on saying. And, you know, for journalism, I think Aaron Wellman didn't totally tip his hand, but he definitely was leaning the Pacific Classic, if you ask me, at the poker table. Now, he got a 101 buyer, which, you know, to win the Classic, you need to be more in the 110 land. But with that finish, that was only 9 furlongs. He's going to have 12 whole more seconds to come down the stretch in the Classic.
The Classic, the amount of quarter, though, and the 2 losses to Sovereignty were both at a mile and a quarter. So that's still the question for him. Can he beat Sovereignty? Not just Sovereignty. If we're talking about the Breeders' Cup Classic, it's all the older horses, too. I mean, we're just talking about the 3-year-olds right now, but if he's going to go on and beat older horses, the Pacific Classic field wouldn't really be that tough. The Breeders' Cup Classic field might be one of the best we've seen in quite some time.
and the classic division has been loaded really with all the horses coming back from last year, plus an amazing group of 3-year-olds. Quite nice. Baeza as well. He's going to be heading towards the Jim Dandy. But journalism keeps on delivering for the fans. He's got those rotating silks. You know, he does have multiple owners, and he was looking good in the green and orange on Saturday.
Yep, he's been using those that big bright red apple on the back in every other start, and it doesn't seem now to matter which silks he's using. Rispoli has him on quite the roll. And Mike McCarthy, what a trainer and what a horse that he has here to be able to be on this ride of a lifetime. And let's hope this train doesn't stop anytime soon.
And, you know, McCarthy, I think he's been very sage and very patient because he had a horse like Rombauer who was quality enough to make the Derby, but he parked, waited for the Preakness, and won. He had Endlessly, who won last year's Jeff Ruby. He kind of didn't want to go to the Derby, but the owners did. This is the horse that's taking him full steam ahead to the Triple Crown.
But he hasn't been missing any of the dances.
True.
It's been Santa Anita Derby, Kentucky Derby, Preakness, Belmont. I really didn't think he would go in the Haskell. They worked. They said, he's doing great. Why not? Let's do it. So now I think it is time for a little bit of a rest. I mean, he's done a lot in just a couple of months. When would the Pacific Classic be? 5-6 weeks from now?
Sounds
5
right.
weeks, I think, towards the end of August. So spacing makes perfect sense. But whatever they decide to do, I've just been fortunate that I got to see him in person now. Los Alamitos Futurity, which was really his breakthrough race. He had the 2 Bob Baffert horses in there, I think Gaming and might have been Getaway Car. And he dusted them. Of course, got to see him in the Preakness. Got to see him 2 days ago. Felt like yesterday. 2 days ago in the Haskell, and definitely hope to get to see him many more times.
We're going to head out to a race course here in Europe. We're going to have our MVP Monday and a little preview at who's going to be at the top of the list. And as we get back here to our European racing, one more question I wanted to ask you about journalism. You mentioned seeing him in person. How about just physically before the race? You're right next to Andy Bincone, who's going to be our queen of the paddock picks. But what's he like physically before the big match?
I wasn't at the Derby, so I didn't get to see him, but I saw him on TV in the Derby, and he looked like royalty. And then in his workouts, he looks like breathes a different air than other horses. And then see him in the paddock, he just has this composure. Forever Young carries that same gift of just, that's a grade 1 horse just by looking at it. It's crazy.
And when thoroughbred racing gets it right, when you have that one horse that comes along that really transcends the excitement of what you expect or even didn't expect in a horse race, a horse like this is really one that pushes the needle. And as Dave told you, the best attendance in over a decade since they had a Triple Crown champion going to the Haskell. Awesome stuff. Dave Weaver and Andy Bincone were trackside.